Welcome to our Friday night question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Mr. McCann. I asked you if there was a possibility that the two-day rapture at the crucifixion might be spiritually pointing a 2033 rapture, and you responded with a reference to Hosea 6, 1 and 2. And in that response to me, you referenced that the 1,000 years living and reigning with Christ might be referenced as the third day. And when you said that, you might have answered a question that I had with regard to John 6:21.
John 6:21 says, "Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went."
And then the other verse is Psalm 90, verse 4.
Psalm 90, verse 4, "For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night."
In both the reference to what is taking place in John 6, Jesus getting into the ship, then immediately at the other side, in both the Matthew account and in the Mark account, it references that Jesus came to their boat in the midst of the sea about the fourth watch. And I'm wondering if there's a possibility that we still have one watch in the night, which according to Psalm 90, verse 4, would be 1,000 years, which spiritually pictures the eternal reign, living and reigning with Christ of the elect. And I'm wondering if that might be the reason the ship is immediately at shore, that both the other accounts reference they're in the midst of the sea. But I wondered if there's a possibility that that immediate crossing of the sea in the night with the fourth watch might be referencing to the rain that we see in Hosea 6, verse 2.
Well, when the Bible speaks of something happening immediately or anon or as quick as possible, it always has to do with the idea of the first available instant in God's program or timetable. That is, in some cases, the immediate nature may not be as quick as we think. Psalm 90 verse 4 is making reference to a past time. "For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night." And that relates to the flood. It's helping us or assisting us understand that 2 Peter 3, "A day is 1,000 years," relates to a past event. And since Psalm 90 is a commentary to go along with 2 Peter 3, it's an assist. Yes, look to the past, look to yesterday, and so we go back to the flood account. Now, as far as the idea, what Hosea says, the third day I will raise you up, and the idea of 2-day period or 3-day period concerning Christ going to the cross from that time, and each day being like 1,000 years. So 33 AD to 1033 AD would be day 1, 1033 to 2033 would be day 2, and then 2033 would begin day 3, 1,000-year reference. The more I think about that, I think it is something for us to consider because it's following the pattern of the first coming of Christ. That pattern that starts in 13 BC, which is the 11,000th year from creation, then 2,300 days until 7 BC when Jesus was born, a Jubilee year. And then from 7 BC until 33 AD, 40 calendar years. And then he goes to the cross. And we read that in 33 AD, when Jesus went to the cross, the strong man was bound for 1,000 years. So God has the 11,000-year timeline come to 13 BC. And then we have the period of Christ's time on earth up until the cross. And then 1,000-year reference identifies with the cross in 33 AD. And that is a figurative 1,000 years that spans 1,955 years of the church age. But the pattern is that in 1988, the 13,000th year of Earth's history, we go 2,300 days until 1994, a Jubilee year, and the beginning of the second outpouring of the Holy Spirit, the latter rain. And then from 1994, we go 40 inclusive years to 2033. And just as from 7 BC went to 33 AD, and then there was a figurative 1,000 years of Satan's binding, from 1994 to 2033, if this idea is correct, then in 2033 comes the new heavens and the new earth, wherein the elect of God live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. That's what it says in Revelation 20, that they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. Now that applies to all the saints who have died and gone to be with the Lord, because it really means forever and ever. 1,000 is the completeness of what's ever in view. And when someone goes to be with the Lord, eternity is in view. At the end of the world, the same thing is in view. Eternity. So 2033 brings another 1,000-year period that would take the people of God into eternity future, and that 1,000 years would never end. So that's a strong parallelism between the first and second coming of Christ. And we already knew we had the 45 actual years from 13 BC to 33 AD, 46 calendar, 45 actual. And that matched 1988 to 2033, 46 calendar, 45 actual. We knew 7 BC lined up with 1994 Jubilee years. And we know that 33 AD and 2033 AD are 2,000 years apart. But now we see that the 1,000 years, the figurative 1,000 years, were brought in 33 AD, and another 1,000 years, if it were the end of the world, would be brought in 2033. So I think it does add some evidence that that idea of in the third day, he will raise us up and live and reign with Christ 1,000 years. And let me read that verse in Hosea that you made reference to. In Hosea chapter 6, verse 1, "Come, and let us return unto Jehovah, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He has smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight." And again, 2 days, 2,000 years. Third day, the third 1,000 year. Jesus was resurrected early in the morning. So God's elect, at the beginning of the third millennium day, the third 1,000 year, God's elect are raised up and live and reign with Christ 1,000 years. So I think it does add some evidence that that idea of in the third day, he will raise us up and live and reign with Christ 1,000 years. So we have some evidence for it.